Hello, everyone. My name is Arthur. For 35 years, I ran a construction business, building things from the ground up with my own two hands and a lot of long nights. It was a good life, a full life, especially because I had my wife, Eleanor, by my side. Together, we built everything that mattered, including our dream home, a beautiful villa nestled by a quiet lake, a sanctuary we planned to grow old in. But life, as it often does, had other plans. I lost Eleanor 3 years ago, and with her, I lost a part of myself. All I had left was our daughter, Clara, and the memories we'd built in that villa. I thought our bond was unbreakable, that family was the one thing you could always count on. I was wrong. My daughter, my only child, looked me in the eye and told me that the home my late wife and I poured our souls into, our sanctuary, was no longer mine. She was giving it to her husband's family, and I was forbidden from ever setting foot there again. Betrayal doesn't even begin to cover it. But when they showed up with a moving truck ready to claim what wasn't theirs, they found a surprise they never saw coming, a lesson they would never, ever forget. Before I tell you how a father's heartbreak turned into a quiet storm of justice, do me a quick favor. If you enjoy stories like this, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. And please, drop a comment to let me know where you're watching from. It truly means the world to me to know you're out there listening. After Eleanor passed, the world felt gray. The vibrant colors she brought to my life had faded, and the silence in our big city house was deafening. Clara was my only anchor. She was grieving too, of course, and I think we clung to each other out of a shared sense of loss. But my grief made me weak, you know? I was so terrified of losing her too, of being completely alone, that I started saying yes to everything. It started small. A little help with her rent. Then she met Liam, a man who seemed nice enough, but had a way of making his problems sound like emergencies. Their wedding was beautiful, and I was happy to write the check, no questions asked. A down payment for a new car? Of course, sweetheart. Her mounting student loan debt? Don't worry about it, Dad. I've got it covered. I just wanted to see her happy. I wanted to feel needed. I see now that I wasn't being a father. I was being a wallet. I was teaching her that my love came with a price tag, and that price was my unconditional surrender to her wants. The villa became my only real escape. It was the last place that still felt like it had Eleanor in it. I could sit on the terrace we designed together, feel the breeze she loved, and almost hear her laughter. I started spending most of my weekends there just to feel close to her. Clara knew this. She knew what that place meant to me. It was a Friday afternoon when the first crack appeared in the foundation of my denial. I'd had a long week dealing with the final paperwork of selling my old business and settling into retirement. All I wanted was the peace of the lake. I packed a small bag, drove the 2 hours out of the city, and pulled into the long, familiar driveway of the villa. But as I got out of the car, my heart sunk. There, on my terrace, stood Clara and Liam, wrapped in my bathrobes, sipping coffee like they owned the place. A cold feeling washed over me. "What's going on?" I called out, trying to keep my voice light, trying to pretend this was a happy surprise. Clara turned, and the look on her face wasn't one of welcome. It was annoyance. "Dad, you can't be here this weekend. Liam and I planned a romantic getaway." I just stood there, my weekend bag feeling impossibly heavy in my hand. A getaway? Honey, this is my house. I came here to relax." "Well, your timing is terrible," she snapped. "We were here first. You're just going to have to go back." Liam looked uncomfortable, shuffling his feet and staring out at the lake, but he said nothing. He never said anything when Clara was like this. He just let her lead. "Go back?" The words felt foreign in my mouth. "Clara, it's a 2-hour drive. I just got here. We can share the house. It's huge." "No," she said, her voice like ice. "We want to be alone. You're ruining the mood. Please just leave." Ruining the mood. In my own home. A home filled with the ghost of her mother. I looked at my daughter, this young woman I adored, and for the first time, I didn't recognize her. The warmth, the love, it was all gone, replaced by this cold, hard entitlement. And me? I did what I had trained myself to do for 3 years. I folded. "Okay," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "Okay, I'll go." I didn't want to fight. I didn't want to make things worse. I just wanted the ache in my chest to stop. As I got back in my car, defeated, I heard her call out, "Next time, call before you come." The sheer audacity of it. Telling me to call before visiting my own home? The drive back to the city was the loneliest I've ever experienced. Every mile was a reminder of my own weakness, of how much I had let things slide. I had given her an inch, and she had taken a universe. I just didn't realize how much more she was planning to take.
The following Monday evening, the phone rang. It was Clara. There was no warmth in her voice, just a cold, chilling purpose. "Dad," she began, "I need you to listen carefully. Liam and I have been talking, and we've made a decision." I waited, a knot tightening in my stomach. "The villa," she said, "it's going to be for Liam's parents now. They're having a tough time financially, and they need a proper place to live, so we're giving it to them." I couldn't process the words. It felt like the line was crackling, like I must have misheard. "What? Clara, what are you talking about? You can't just give away my house." "Actually, I can," she said, her tone sharp and final. "It's their home now, and you're forbidden from going there anymore. It would just make things awkward." Forbidden. The word echoed in the silence of my study. Forbidden from the place I built with my wife? The place that held her memory? "You've lost your mind," I stammered, my heart pounding against my ribs. "The deed is in my name. I bought it with money I earned over 30 years of breaking my back." Her laugh was the cruelest sound I'd ever heard. "Oh, don't be so dramatic and selfish, Dad. You're old. You're all alone. What do you possibly need with such a big place? You barely even use it." "I'm there every weekend," I shouted, my voice finally finding its strength. "It's where I feel close to your mother." "Well, maybe it's time you moved on," she shot back. "Mom would be ashamed of how selfish you're being. Liam's parents need this. They're family now." "They are not my family, Clara. And my answer is no." It was the first time in 3 years I'd said that word to her with any real conviction. The silence on the other end was heavy with shock. "You can't say no to me," she finally whispered, her voice trembling with rage. "They're moving in this weekend. I've already arranged for a moving company. Don't make this harder than it has to be." And then she hung up. Just like that. She hung up on me after telling me she was stealing my home, my memories, my last connection to Eleanor. I sat there in the dark, the dead phone in my hand, and something inside me finally broke. But it wasn't a sad, crumbling break. It was a cold, hard snap. The grief that had clouded my judgment for 3 long years finally began to clear, and underneath it was the man Eleanor had married. The man who built an empire from scratch. The man who never, ever backed down from a fight when he was in the right. The pushover was gone. Arthur was back. And I realized Clara had made a terrible mistake. She hadn't just hung up on her grieving, lonely father. She had declared war on a man who knew exactly how to build things and exactly how to tear them down. That night, sleep was impossible. I sat in my study, surrounded by the awards and photos from my long career, and I started thinking, not as a father, but as a builder, as a strategist. Clara had given me a deadline, this coming weekend. A fatal mistake. She assumed I would crumble, that I'd be too heartbroken to fight back. She saw me as weak, emotional, and predictable. She had no idea who she was dealing with. The next morning, I didn't wallow in self-pity. I made a pot of strong coffee and called Marcus, my lawyer for over 20 years. I didn't pour my heart out to him. I presented the situation like a business problem. "Marcus," I said, "I have a situation involving the Lake Tahoe property, an unauthorized attempt at a hostile takeover." There was a pause. "Hostile takeover? Fred, is this about a business partner?" "Worse," I said. "Family." Marcus was sharp. He understood immediately. "Okay, Arthur, let's get to work. First, we secure the asset, then we build a firewall. Tell me everything." I laid out the events of the past few days, from the confrontation at the villa to the chilling phone call. Marcus listened patiently, and when I was done, his advice was simple and direct. "He's banking on you being emotional, so we will be the opposite. We will be methodical, legal, and absolute. She wants to play games? Fine. We'll play chess." The plan we developed wasn't about revenge in the flashy sense. It wasn't about scaring them or tricking them. It was colder, more permanent. It was about surgically removing their power and their hope, using the very system they were trying to abuse, the law. First, Marcus confirmed the deed was ironclad. It was solely in my name, with no clauses that gave Clara any rights whatsoever. Her claim was based on nothing but pure, audacious entitlement. Next came the masterstroke. "We're going to put the villa into a trust," Marcus explained, a glint in his eye. "An irrevocable family trust." "What does that mean exactly?" I asked. "It means you transfer ownership from yourself to the trust. You can no longer be seen as the individual owner. The trust owns it. And you, Arthur, get to write the rules of that trust." A slow smile spread across my face. I was beginning to see the beautiful, elegant simplicity of it. "We will name you as the lifetime beneficiary," Marcus continued. "You retain full and exclusive rights to use, occupy, and enjoy the property for the rest of your natural life. No one can kick you out. No one can tell you to call first." "And after I'm gone?" I asked, thinking of Eleanor. "That's the beauty of it. You decide. We can name a charity, something Eleanor would have loved, a foundation for the arts, a local animal shelter, a conservation group to protect the lake she adored." The idea was perfect. It would protect the villa long after I was gone, turning it into a legacy of Eleanor's kindness instead of a monument to Clara's greed. But there was one more piece, the firewall. "And Marcus," I said, my voice low and steady, "I want a clause in that trust, a very specific one." "Go on," he said, pen at ready.
"I want it to state in no uncertain terms that due to a fundamental breach of familial trust and a demonstrated attempt to unlawfully seize the asset, my daughter, Clara, her husband, Liam, any of their current or future descendants, and any of their in-laws are permanently and irrevocably barred from ever benefiting from, residing on, or holding any managerial role related to the property or the trust itself." Marcus stopped writing and looked up at me. His usual professional demeanor was replaced with a look of genuine respect. "Arthur," he said, "that's not a firewall. That's a fortress." "Exactly," I replied. "Build it." We had less than 4 days. Marcus and his team worked around the clock, drafting the complex legal documents. Meanwhile, I played my part. I sent Clara a single text message that evening. It read, "You've made your position clear. I won't stand in your way." It was a calculated move. It was just ambiguous enough to make her believe I had surrendered. I could almost picture her showing the text to Liam, a triumphant smirk on her face. The old man had folded, just like always. They had won. They started making their final plans, blissfully unaware that while they were booking a moving truck, I was busy building a legal cage they would never escape. They were planning a move. I was planning a checkmate. The day they chose to move in was a beautiful, sunny Sunday. I didn't go to the villa. There was no need. My work was done. Instead, I sat in my study with a fresh cup of coffee and my phone on the table. At precisely 10 a.m., as the moving truck would be pulling into the driveway, I had arranged for a special welcoming committee. My man on the ground was a retired sheriff named Bill, a guy I'd known for years who now ran a private security and process-serving business in the Tahoe area. He was solid, calm, and utterly unimpressed by entitled people. "They're here, Arthur," Bill's voice crackled over the phone. "Blue moving truck, just like you said, minivan behind it, 4 of them, daughter, son-in-law, and an older couple. Let them get out. Let them start unloading," I instructed. "I want them to feel like they're in control." I could hear the satisfaction in Bill's voice. "Copy that. Letting them dig their own hole a little deeper." Through Bill's eyes, I pictured the scene. Clara pointing at the front door, directing the movers. Liam trying to look important, clipboard in hand. His parents, Carl and Margaret, looking around at the trees and the lake with greedy, self-satisfied smiles. This was their new life, handed to them on a silver platter. They probably felt on top of the world. They directed the movers to start carrying boxes toward the front door. A sofa, a lamp, a box labeled kitchen. They were literally moving their life into my home. After about 15 minutes, when their confidence was at its absolute peak, I gave the signal. "Okay, Bill, it's time." "My pleasure, Arthur." Bill, dressed in a professional but intimidating uniform, walked calmly up the driveway. He was accompanied by a woman in a sharp business suit, who was a junior associate from Marcus's law firm. They didn't shout, they didn't rush, they just walked with purpose. Right up to Clara. "Ma'am, are you Clara?" Bill's voice was deep and steady. Clara turned, her face a mask of annoyance. "Yes? Can I help you? We're a little busy here." "I'm afraid you are," Bill said, and that's when the associate stepped forward, holding out a thick legal envelope. "You've been served." Clara just stared at the envelope. "Served? What is this, some kind of joke?" "I assure you it is not a joke," the lawyer said politely. She then turned to Liam, Carl, and Margaret, handing each of them their own identical envelope. "This is for you, and for you, and for you. I suggest you all read it carefully, and I would advise the moving company to stop unloading immediately." The movers, sensing trouble, froze in place, a dining room chair hovering mid-air. Clara tore open the envelope, her hands shaking. Liam and his parents did the same. I wish I could have seen their faces as they read the first page. It was a cease and desist letter, formally notifying them that they were trespassing on private property. But that was just the appetizer. The main course was the next document, a full, certified copy of the Eleanor Villa Legacy Trust. I could hear the change in the atmosphere through the phone as Bill narrated. "Her face is going pale, Arthur. She's reading the part about the lifetime beneficiary. Now she's getting to the firewall clause. Oh boy." Clara looked up from the papers, her eyes wide with disbelief and fury. "What is this? What have you done?" she shrieked, looking wildly around as if I might be hiding in the bushes. The young lawyer answered calmly. "Mr. Martinez has placed this property into an irrevocable trust. The trust is now the legal owner. According to the terms of the trust, your presence here constitutes trespassing. The trust also contains a specific clause on page 7, paragraph 3, permanently barring you and your relatives from the property." "Barred? He can't do that," Liam yelled, his face turning a blotchy red. "I'm afraid he can, and he has," she replied. "It's all perfectly legal. The documents were filed and executed yesterday morning. This property no longer belongs to Arthur. It belongs to the trust, and the trust does not want you here. You have 10 minutes to vacate the premises before we notify the authorities."
The magnificent, beautiful, soul-crushing finality of it all must have hit them like a physical blow. The moving truck, the boxes on the lawn, their smug smiles, all of it was a monument to their spectacular failure. They hadn't just been blocked, they had been legally and permanently erased from the equation. Their dream of a free lakeside villa had evaporated into the ink on a legal document they couldn't fight, couldn't change, and couldn't ignore. The game was over, and they had lost. The silence on my end of the phone was broken only by the sound of Clara's enraged screaming in the background. She was screaming at the lawyer, at Bill, at the movers, at the sky. But it didn't matter. Her voice had no power there anymore. She had been rendered completely and utterly irrelevant. They showed up at my house that evening. I knew they would. Their rage needed a target, and I was it. When I opened the door, Clara tried to push past me, her face a storm of fury. Liam stood behind her, looking like a defeated bulldog. "You! How could you?" she screamed. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. I just stood there, calm and solid. I did what I had to do to protect myself, and to protect your mother's memory, I said quietly. "Protect yourself? You destroyed our lives," Liam chimed in. "His parents have nowhere to go. We were counting on that house." "You were counting on something that was never yours to take. You made plans based on theft. That's a poor business model, Liam." Clara's eyes filled with tears, but they weren't tears of sorrow. They were tears of pure frustration. "This is about spite. It's because I told you to leave the other day, isn't it? You did all this just to get back at me." I almost laughed. She still didn't get it. She thought this was an emotional reaction, a temper tantrum. She couldn't comprehend that it was a calculated, strategic move. "No, Clara," I said, my voice patient, as if explaining something to a child. "This isn't about one weekend. It's about 3 years. It's about every time you treated me like an ATM. It's about you using my love for your mother as a weapon against me. It's about you believing I was so broken by grief that I would let you steal the most precious thing we built together. This wasn't revenge. This was a course correction." "We'll sue you," she threatened. "We'll take you to court and tell everyone what a horrible, cruel father you are." "On what grounds?" I asked calmly. "That I donated my own property to a charity in your mother's name? That's a case I'm happy to have heard in open court. The trust is irrevocable. The documents are ironclad. There's nothing you can do. You have no legal standing." The realization finally dawned on her face. The finality of it. She had no moves left. She had played her queen, and I had responded with a checkmate she never saw coming. Then she played her last, desperate card, the one she thought was her ace in the hole. "Fine," she hissed, her voice dripping with venom. "You want to be alone? You've got it. You will never see me again, and if I ever have children, they will never know their grandfather's name. You'll die old and alone in this house, clutching your victory." 3 years ago, that threat would have shattered me. It was the lever she had used to control me, the fear of complete isolation. But I wasn't that man anymore. I looked my daughter in the eye, the anger and grief finally replaced by a profound, quiet sadness. "Clara," I said, softly, "I've already been alone for 3 years. The only difference is now I'm at peace with it. The door you see is always open, but the doormat is gone. You're welcome to visit your father, but the bank is permanently closed." She stared at me, speechless. She had nothing left. No threats, no manipulations, no power. She turned and stormed away, Liam trailing behind her like a shadow. I closed the door, and the silence that filled my house was no longer lonely. It was peaceful. It was the sound of my own life, reclaimed. In the weeks and months that followed, a deep quiet settled over my life. The phone didn't ring with frantic demands. My email was free of manipulative messages. The silence from Clara was absolute. At first, it was strange, like a phantom limb that had finally stopped aching. But then it became normal. It became peace. I started spending more time at the villa. Driving up there no longer felt like a retreat from pain, but a journey towards joy. I walked the halls, and the memories of Eleanor were no longer tinged with the bitterness of Clara's betrayal. They were pure again. I could sit on the terrace and remember her laugh without a knot in my stomach. The house felt cleansed, like it could breathe again. I got in touch with the conservation charity we'd named in the trust. I started volunteering, using my old construction and project management skills to help them build new observation platforms and walking trails around the lake. I met new people, people who were passionate and kind, who respected me for my contributions, not for what they could get from me. For the first time in years, I was building something again, not for profit, but for purpose. I learned a hard lesson, that love and kindness without boundaries aren't virtues, they're liabilities. A father's love should be a foundation, not a free-for-all. I had let my grief turn me into a victim, and in doing so, I had enabled my daughter's worst instincts. By finally setting a boundary, a huge, unshakable, legally binding one, I hadn't just protected myself. I had, in a strange way, given her the only thing that might ever help her grow. A consequence. My life is smaller now, in some ways. It's quieter. But it's also more authentic. It's mine. I no longer live in fear of a phone call or a text message. I wake up in the morning and the day belongs to me. I can go to the villa whenever I want, and I know that its future is secure, that it will stand as a testament to Eleanor's love for nature, not as a prize won by greed. I don't know if I'll ever hear from Clara again. Maybe one day she'll understand the lesson I had to teach her, and myself. Maybe not. But I've made my peace with that. I am no longer just the grieving widower or the accommodating father. I am Arthur, and my foundations are once more solid.